GitLab account.
Yeah, it's the...
And no one else will be able to live stream, just us? Just
No,
something.
you can have multiple live streams at the same time.
Okay.
So I see something in my screen that tells me that this is being live streamed, and I can, okay, accept or...
Yeah, I can see.
Got it. So this is telling me that it's live streamed. Oh, that's the link, but because it's private, I can't see it right now. Okay, this is okay. I'm gonna put
I can see it. Yeah, it says it's private.
The link in here, so that's the recording. And yeah, so in theory, it's live streaming. Hello world, we're testing live stream. And yeah, maybe next time we can try with the public by default. In any case,
the only thing with the public one is what's the controls then? Like what happens if it is... I worry more about that one. Can we change the settings on this? Like after the private live stream, can we switch?
You can change during this. So that's let me do this just for an example, right?
Okay.
So I will, so that we record this as well. So I will screen share this thing here. So this is me. I can't see it because it's private. Then I can, in theory, I should be able to go here, switch to this account. Okay, now I'm hearing myself with a lot of delay, which is making me mad. So mute. Okay, yeah, that's the thing. There's a lot of delay, as you can see, right? So and because there is this delay, basically, if we say something, we can just, I think it's here, edit video. Is it that or not? Yeah, and basically we can change the visibility.
Oh, you have to go in. So because the thing is, we're still going to need to do a little bit of edit afterwards anyway because of the playlist. So how about we live stream private and then afterwards?
You can set the playlist here. So what
but you have to come into YouTube, right? Like that's...
Yeah, but this opens by, so the thing is, this thing's open by himself because when you say I want to live stream, it opens the browser because it has which accounts do you want to, and when you start, it gives you the link.
I see. Okay.
And I was with the, I mean, I'm usually use my own account, which is what everyone should be doing. So it tells me you can't do anything here, but then you switch and you have the edit. It's everything is there. You can switch to the GitLab unfiltered, then you have right access, right? So
fine. Okay.
I would just say team delivery done. Okay. We're
and
done.
The other one as well.
Which is
enabling self-serve deployments. Demo the guidelines 3. Yeah.
There we go. Done.
Cool.
That's it.
If you think it's safe, like if you think it's going to not interrupt the flow, I guess that's the thing, right? I don't want us to be distracted from our actual discussions and demos by needing to keep track of this other thing because we're live streaming publicly. I would rather us have everything set up and just be able to fully focus on the demo discussion, and then afterwards say, you know, was that a private or a public?
I mean, I think it's fine if we say we do private, we'll talk about everything we want, and then at the end we just change the public and set the because as you said, we have to go there and change those the playlist. So
yeah, that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense.
Great.
So let me stop sharing.
Do you mind, Alessia, as well? Would you mind just updating the demo guidelines section at the top to include the steps for this?
Sure, I will.
Yes, thanks. Cool. Right, well, we'll see next week if other people have live streaming rights to this up. Nice, thanks a lot. So number 2, I realized after I'd sent out all the invites and scheduled this, that this clashes with the delivery system demo. But I wanted to check in with you two on like would you like to have the option to be able to attend the system demo if you want to? Like, shall I find another slot for this?
Well,
It is recorded also, right? The other demo.
Yep, I assume so.
Okay. Then I'm okay with being on the same time.
Okay.
I'm speaking for myself.
same for me. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, we can always, if ever like it gets to, we see lots more convergence and we need to, we want to have that option, then let me know and we can certainly find another slot for this, especially in the next few months, the next like 6 weeks or so. That will be very, very straightforward because there's only the three of us. Because Myra, we haven't spoken yet today, but Matt is now likely to be out through to about mid-October. Cool. So I dropped number 3 on the agenda, which is around terminology. So Graham has put together a doc. I know I saw Myra, you've added comments, so Matt has added some comments, but one thing in particular I wanted us to try and unblock is specifically the naming of automated releases. And then we can get the epics created for pages and GitLab agent service and metrics exporter as well if that one comes in. So let's have a little chat about the options. One thing I realized as I was thinking about this one is perhaps I don't have a super maybe Matt added it there, but Alessia, do you want to maybe just give a short summary of like somebody saying I want to have what's currently termed automated release, like what are they actually specifically requesting?
Sure. So basically, what they are requesting is that they don't have to care about tagging and branching. That's the thing, right? So they will keep their version file in the Rails repo updated. And this is a big unknown, how they are going to do this without tagging their own releases. But let's imagine for a moment, they can keep this updated with what they want to deploy. And then when we tag a release, monthly release, we create the branches and tags that are aligned with what we are releasing and changelog and everything. And when we do a patch release, if there are new changes on their stable branches, we pack everything together and create a patch release. When we do security release, same.
Okay. Okay.
So they want to remove all the administrative chores related to handling the packaging themselves. Because what happens for developers in component teams when they do this manually is they have a reminder or something around 20 seconds, some days before, where they say, I need to cut a new release. How do I cut a new release? They do their own process. They cut the release. They do everything manually.
Right.
Then they do a merge request to bump the version on GitLab itself. And so when we run the monthly release or any type of release, we just propagate that version. So they own the versioning, and we propagate this from Rails to the packagers. What we are saying here is that they no longer own the versioning, they just own the current stable version. So they give us, let's say, the SHA. That's the easiest option. They gave us the SHA of what they think is worth deploying. And then everything else is managed by release tools.
Okay. So to summarize then, they are, rather than them having a load of administrative chores that they currently do at certain dates, they will have a, I mean, it's not fully automated, right? But they will have a way of basically giving us just the SHA, and that means you get an inclusion into our self-managed releases.
Yep.
Okay.
So I agree with the definition. It's just that the definition or the comment that Graham added, it is kind of confusing me because, well, I'm gonna share my screen so we
Yeah, I was
can
gonna
read
say,
it
which one?
together. So I commented here that I really enjoy the automated releases because I believe it conveys the automation that would manage the releases for the component. And then Graham's answer, like the problem is releases seems a bit ambiguous. Like when I hear the phrase automated releases, I assumed it was talking about self-managed releases, not releases of the component. And I think we're talking about both here.
Yeah,
right?
They just became the same thing.
Exactly,
That's the-
exactly.
So with
Okay.
this, there is just one release type and is the self-managed, because outside of self-managed, you don't care because you work by SHA. But this was
Okay.
that was a discussion point last time because it was there was some ambiguity around this. Because basically what we're going to say is that we remove for you the need to release something because we take care of it. And then all of a sudden releases became the same thing of a self-managed release. Prior to this, you have to do your own releases and then decide if something is ready for the customer, because you may do several releases in between a monthly release just to incrementally deploy changes during your development. Everything is team is doing this differently. So if they want to break down the risk of shipping 1 month of features in just one go, a couple of days before the 22nd, some of them are doing, they just create many releases during the month, and every time they do a new release, they bump the version, and they bump the version, and then in the end, when we create the stable branches, we pick just the version that the last version they were using.
When you say, let's say, when you say they create multiple releases, are they like, do you mean like tags or literal packages that get released?
So no one create packages, only Omnibus create packages.
Right.
So they create tags, and then every time we build an auto-deploy package, Omnibus and CNG build packages or images out of that tag that they generated.
So as a self-managed user, you could pick up releases from, say, pages. If they had this process, you could pick those changes up without us doing a monthly release. Is that right? If they had done a release?
No.
So release doesn't mean the code is available.
I mean, there is an
to
artifact that is
self-manage.
published. Yeah, but that's because of the way things are triggered. So components don't control the building phase. That's just how Omnibus and CNG and everything was designed. So in order to generate a package, you either run the nightly packages that we as a company run nightly, or you need a release of some kind, also deploy, patch, security, or monthly. So you need someone to tag Omnibus and CNG for you in order to have packages, all the packages included. That's the point, right? So
I see. Okay.
Right.
Would it be? So I think we should, I mean, I know I've chatted with Graham a bit and he's mentioned a few times around, like, a lot of our terms are super overloaded. I think in this case, release is one of those words. Like, it may not be completely like possible to change the whole company's sort of terminology, but how about for our sakes, like within the things we control, release means like a package, like could a release mean a package to a self-managed user?
I mean, we can. The point, yeah, I will try to be more aligned with the terminology that we have in the product instead. And this is where things are going wrong, because if you create a tag, then it's a release.
I see. Okay. Well, in which case, this is actually what I think is a really good chance for us to look a little bit further ahead, right? So we have lots of terms in action right now. And I think some of those are like super tied to like implementation detail.
Yeah,
and
that's a good point.
the name is very specifically what happens right now. This is a great chance for us to start thinking about what are people signing up to get.
Yeah. I was thinking about some of those names from a different perspective, which is exactly as you said, not describing the implementation, but describing some kind of high-level ideal state, which allows us to match those with what we have today, but even evolve into a new scheme in the future without having to rename them. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. People don't really need to care about which pipeline did we use or was it release tools, right? Like monthly release, I think, is one of the few things that's really well named because people know what it is. They know the rough timeline. They don't care what our mechanism for making that happen. It just happens.
Yeah, I pasted my note. So I was thinking that from the top. So the single source of truth GitLab or GitLab can just be centralized component versioning, which today is there. Tomorrow may be our goal to move this versioning somewhere else, because we have all the problem about if we want to go independent deployment, we don't really know how to track things. If we want to track before we deploy, after we deploy, and so what we actually need in order to have this is one place where where are the information about the components, right? So automated rollout, I was persuaded that we can just say component auto deploy, because it is exactly what we're talking about, is enrolling your component into the auto deploy pipeline. So it's everyone knows what
need to have component on there. Like it's
also can be auto deploy. Yeah, I can just be,
because I wonder if like I'm thinking in the future that what we may end up with is, say, a stage group basically gets to subscribe, choose like, are we on the auto deploy path or are we on the independent deploy path? I wonder, I know auto deploy is super embedded already, so I am a little reluctant to change it, but I do wonder if one of the downsides that stage groups find with auto deploys is that we control it. And the benefit of independent deploy is that they would control it. I wonder if we consider having something that shows that in the name, if that makes sense. So I wonder if almost instead of like
something like managed auto deploy,
something like that, I almost wonder, because the kind of, I guess what they'll be making a decision on in the future is like, do I want release managers to choose to handle the cadence of this, or do I want to take that responsibility?
Yeah, makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah. So let's say managed auto deploy.
Yeah, that's we can. I mean, you say we can fairly figure on wording, but it seems like that seems a little bit more like an indication of what you're saying.
Yeah, it tells you that it is part of the auto deploy and is managed process. So you provide what is needed, and then you just forget about it.
Yeah.
If you're fine with this, you're fine with this, or if not,
that's it. Exactly.
There are options that's still not ready, but there are other options.
Okay. Yeah, there will be options in the future.
There will be options. Yeah.
What do you think about 3 to go down a similar route then? Like, does managed tagging or branching?
Yeah, so that's a good point. In the first iteration of this renaming, I was thinking they probably will want to keep consistent naming. That's why automated was nice, because you have automated this, automated that, automated this other. But then there were not that many steps, and so I just removed. I gave everyone a different name, but we can stick with managed.
Because I guess from a developer perspective, they sort of don't care if we have automated tools or not. What they care about is they don't have to do something.
What
like
about
they would get as much benefit from us
versioning?
Jumping in and versioning might be better, because it indicates that there's going to be some version consistency, right?
Yeah, something like this. So then what about, am I freezing? Okay, you are all moving, we're just silent.
Anyway, we're all just like thinking.
Yeah, it's fine. It's
Also,
fine,
I
right?
appreciate that you two have coordinated your outfits. I feel very, very left out, very unsunny compared to you two.
So if we want to stay with this managed naming, what can be the name for the automated update, which actually means deploy from the main branch?
So just in terms of I'm a developer, this is basically what Gitly get, right? Which all they need to concern themselves with is they have merged changes into their main, correct?
Yeah.
And then it will be deployed. Yeah. I mean, to me, it almost feels like some sort of like it almost something like a inclusion. It feels to me that what you're doing there is you've got some kind of automatic inclusion. Remind me, do we have anything on this list already that we have a name for when people don't have the automated update? Do we have the inverse of that already named?
No, it's just like everyone is doing. They
Do
call it
we
version
like-
bumping. You just
Yeah,
say, because
Just
this
to
is
take
tied
this
with the
a
previous
step
one.
back, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm trying to keep the pace, but to do automated update, you need to do the automated rollout,
Release.
right?
No, the automated releases.
So what is the difference between the automated update or the managed auto deploy now that we are changing the name?
So no, yeah, that's a good point. So details here. So in theory, that's the important part, right? You can just do automated update without anything else. I mean, you need the first one, the centralized component versioning.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's nothing to update. Say you have it, and say you just do the automated update, even by yourself, not through release tools. You just do it. What will end up happening here is that we will be unaware of what is happening, and every monthly release we are going to package that component built from the SHA without any tagging, without any branching, without anything. It would just work. This has been a proposal for Gitly. They refused
Okay.
because they want to have the version name and everything. So, okay, I'm going to give you the alignment then. Because in theory, if we don't consider security and patch releases, that's the reason why you actually want to have all the automation, because then it's easier to figure out where should I put my fix, because you have the stable branch ready. But in theory, you can run without any of this. So yeah.
So just to add on that, because Graham kind of mentioned it this morning as well to me, and he the way he phrased it, I was like, so for the Kubernetes component at the moment, they manually open two MRs to bump their versions. Yeah. So one is, you'll have to tell me where these are. So one is in the first one is in the CNG, right? And the second one is in the GitLab repo.
In Kate's workload.
Yeah, right. Okay. So the managed auto deploy takes away that second one, and is that right? Is that the wrong way around?
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, this is right.
So they and then that means that they just have one MR they have to open, but they still have to open a manual MR to get the version file in place. But it does give them some benefits, because it means they can develop quite freely and test quite freely, and they have a point where they basically say, this thing is now ready to become a part of the managed auto deploys.
There's actually a third MR, which I don't know if they're doing before or after, which is the one that bumped the version file. And this was one of the concerns, where to say the way we are running right now, we may even package something that is inconsistent with what we are testing on GitLab.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So they basically have a lot of manual putting version files in various places at different points. So they can do, they can move to managed auto deploys and lose one of those. Or they could do the next step, which is also move to the like deploy from main branch, whatever we name this, and that gets rid of one of the next steps, maybe both their manual steps.
Yeah, basically, we can let's see if it works. Basically, they bump the version file, they do their own tagging and then create the CNG image. And when the CNG image, so this is the second AMER, when the CNG image is ready, they can ask us to deploy with a merge request on Kate's workload, right? So those are the three steps.
Yeah.
If we give them managed auto deploy, they don't have to bump the version on Kate's workload because we just roll with what we are doing. If we give them managed versioning, they don't have to work with the CNG thing. They don't have to trigger a CNG build just to build their own image, which is independent, because it will be part of what is inside auto deploy. And if we give them component deploy from main branch, they don't even have to bump the version file in the Rails repo. That's kind of the three steps. It's a bit more, the process is a bit less streamlined than how I described it, because there are caveats in between. But
I'll drop in the diagram that Matt put together based on Graham's description, because I think we can probably map those together reasonably well so that you can, but essentially we don't, moving to auto deploy for these types of, for the Kubernetes components doesn't necessarily eliminate all their manual MRs. We basically skim off those manual MRs one by one.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. For omnibus packages is different because they are there is less step in there, but we no longer have other stuff there, right? So
yeah.
So we were discussing the name of
like I think it's close, right? Like it's what I don't want to confuse it with is eventually when we get to independent deployments, the teams that have independent deployments will be able to deploy from their main branch.
Yeah, that's an important thing to highlight. So when you go independent deployment, we have to revisit what does it mean automated update. Or deploy from main branch.
Yeah.
Because if there is a problem to solve before we can get an independent deployment, which is how do we change component version tracking?
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's a super fun problem.
And deploying from the main branch, that's why it was named automated update, because the real thing that this is doing is updating the version file as it works today.
So keep going on that thought, like what's it actually doing?
So because we have a version file and we build and package and deploy from that version file. So the automated update is just keeping the content of that file in sync with the status of the main branch. This is what it's doing, but call it a trick, it's a detail, but that's because how we package things together. If we do independent deployment, that file probably will no longer be our source of information for what's inside a package.
It maybe needs to, though, right? Like this is perhaps one of the problems that we will need to solve. Okay. Okay, this makes more sense then. So how about we try and name that to be more like this is almost like a dependency, right? That all pieces will need to well, the dependency exists, but maybe this piece is almost something around, and this one actually probably is automated. What about having something like, this is something like automated version management or something that kind of, I'm guessing this is more or less metadata. Is that correct?
It's more dependency versioning. This is automated dependency management.
Okay, let's call it that. Let's call it that.
Yeah, but
what is wrong with automated update? Is it broad?
Well, what does it mean?
It means we are
It could be-
deploying from the main branch.
Does that mean? I don't know. I feel like update's very ambiguous. Like,
You
what
can
is
make automated
updated?
version file update if you want to be more
Version
specific
file
on what is
update
it.
sounds very descriptive.
Yeah, I mean, if that's all
And-
it's doing, then
Yeah,
yeah,
and can be something that we just say with the, if you want to go independent deployment, we no longer need this, right? So this could be something which is just an intermediate step to bring everything on a baseline level where every component is on the same level and we can describe what's
go
next.
from that, move on
'Cause
from that. Yeah. Okay.
I'm also thinking that we may end up having component on different level of this thing, right? So we probably want to define what will be in the future the minimum level. So say you want to go component, it must have this, and this. No
Yeah.
way around. But then you can choose, right? What level, what strategy of deployment do you want? And then some of those things may
Yeah.
change.
Okay, that makes sense. Then let's go with that, right? Because that fits, I think, with mentally what we are replacing there is a manual AMER. So that, I mean, intuitively, people can see the two sides, right? You're doing it manually or you're doing it automatically. Those are the two pieces. So that, I think that makes sense. Cool. And yeah, we've been talking a lot about, we've been calling all of these things self-serve deployments, but actually, I think independent deployment is more accurate, because what we're literally talking, we're not talking about people having access to auto deploy pipelines and being able to do stuff there, right? We are talking about your component will get its own deploy.
Yeah.
It will go on its own and needs to be a independent being.
Yeah, that's it.
That feels more accurate for sure. Cool. Okay. So just to run back on the automated releases, how is there a, if we say managed versioning, does that work as its own standalone name? Do you think we need to mention anything around the tagging of branches? Just because I think it gets long, right?
I think we are fine with just managed versioning, because everyone, and we know that we have stable branches that are tied to versions and tags, so it's kind of
Cool.
it includes everything in my view.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. I think that's I think to me at least, it feels like it explains well enough what it does. It sets the expectation that we are going to be handling all of that. People don't need to know too much about how we're going to handle it. They just know they are not.
Yeah.
And what we can then start to do is perhaps we start to have, I can already see like we've kind of got three things emerging out of this, right? Where we've kind of got this kind of almost these like capabilities, I guess, with like centralized component versioning and automated version updates, which kind of like centralized stores. And then we have managed X are things that release managers will be doing. And we can have independent X for things that stage groups could be doing. And then we could start to talk about like, are we talking about independent patch releases, independent security release, right? And we already have some terminology to kind of try and group up who is actually going to be the person who is responsible for all of that stuff.
Yeah, because I think that in this view of being SaaS first, what we mostly care about is the current running version, and this is where development focus should always be, right? So versioning is just a byproduct of this. At a given point in time, we create versioning out of that. But it becomes important when we do support, because then we want to do patches and things like that. And so it's relevant. There will be a lot of things around that, but it should not be in developers' main focus. So we want to just try to streamline the process as much as possible to remove all the craft and manual step for us as well. And that's for next quarter or even the one after that, to just streamline all the process after this one, right? So I think it makes sense.
Awesome. Sounds good. Sounds good. So I'm happy to put some stuff back into the terminology doc and put a summary on some of the epics that exist already, so that Graham kind of has a bit of a drop-in point to move on from there. Are there the other thing which I'll start having to think about, it ties into something else which Alessia and I were chatting about yesterday, is so these will be good terms for us to start circulating. So the easy first step is we can start putting them in the epics and issues, and we can start broadly sort of putting them out that way. But the other better thing, which Graham was really good at highlighting, is these should also be in the handbook, and we should have ways of actually explaining, here's how things fit. Now I'll take an action on that just because I'm already thinking about how we can improve the releases handbook page, and I'm going to attempt to split that so that we have a releases page and we have a deployments page which has the information specific to those two things. And then there'll be I'm going to guess a page that sits above that, which is almost like GitLab releases and deployments, that can just give the super high level to intro you into our specifics. So I will have a shot at doing that this week, and then we can start to work in naming as we go through.
Okay.
Super. Is there other stuff that would be useful to go through today?
So in that document, there was also some section about the requirements for each one of this. I added some. I don't know if we want to keep working on requirements in the Google Doc, because there's still some missing piece. I'm thinking, for instance, the deployment tracking is not mentioned anywhere, but some of those things, managed versioning requires that, because managed versioning is checking what's the current deployed version. So it's getting the value live.
Right,
So
I see, yeah.
in order to have it means that thing has to be implemented. So we either put it as a requirement of that one or another step that is prerequisite to that one, but I don't think we have. So that's the thing we say, what are the paths that a team can follow to implement those things, right? Can you parallelize some of those? Can you get only one? If you get only one, what do you need to have, right? So that type of thing.
So I'm okay with sort of draft things going into this doc. What we probably should take care of is that this doc doesn't become a kind of parallel thread to the analysis issues and kind of all the other discussion issues. I'm super conscious that we are going to be very constrained for the next month or so with Matt being out. So one thing Graham is going to start working on is putting together ideas for how we can get pages into managed versioning. He's going to set up that release in Epic. So I think probably at that point we can check we have all the requirements and use that as a kind of model to go out. And perhaps we do something similar when we move CAS to the managed auto deploys. And from there, we can sort of at that point discuss what are all the requirements and how do we then turn that into something which other teams can pick up from. But if you want to if there are things you're want to sort of make sure we don't miss, feel free. If you want to just quickly drop them in that terms and definitions, I'm considering it to be very much a draft sketchpad-y type of place, since it's not easily shareable.
Okay. Yeah, I had a couple of notes, and yeah, that's it.
Cool. And yeah, one thing we should probably do, I mean, we don't have to do it as part of these OKRs, but say towards the end of the quarter or next quarter, actually have a thing where we put together here is the documentation, so that a stage group wanting to do X doesn't have to come and ask us all this stuff. They can actually find out a lot of it themselves and know, here are the steps I should go through in order to pick up each piece.
Yeah. I have a question for Myra. I'm asking to you, Myra. It's fine if you don't know the answer, because I don't know as well. So So
Is it the question on the document?
yeah, but I'm going to expand it
great.
a bit more, right?
Yes,
Because I
please.
want to also have Amy aware of this. So I want to be clear here with everyone in the team and watching the recording that when we talk about managed versioning, we are at there is an entry level, which is what we define here, which is release tools takes care of tagging, changelog, building branches. There is a next layer on top of this, which I strongly believe is not in scope now because it's a lot of work, which is extending all the release process to be automated. What am I talking about? You will not get the benefit of peek into version number. It will not work. You would just know that you have the stable release branch ready. If you want to pick something into the next patch release, you merge it. You merge it in the stable branch and the tool will release for you. No automated picking. Same, there's no picking to deploy, obviously, because that's completely different process. Security releases being even the more complex thing. Again, if you merge it, it will be released, but then the version bumping and everything will go into the situation like the Gitali one. I think Gitali has some level of integration, so probably we merge things for them. But I want to, at least in the first version, when we propose things to teams, is that we tag what's on the stable branch. End of story. So all the other process that exists will not apply here. And then we can revisit all those processes, because I don't think it's worth to have that type of process. We want to streamline and make things easier, but I won't make it this clear. So
yeah, okay.
What should I do if, so there's this part of the documentation you mentioned, right? So as a development team which embarked into the managed versioning process, what should I do if I need a patch release? You merge the thing on the stable branch and it will be released for you. What should I do if I need to do a security release? There will be a security release process, and then we have to figure out what's the exact details. Probably they merge on the stable branch, they bump the version manually with the SHA so that AppSec can test their fix. And then in the end, when we tag, we will retag everything and make all the versioning that looks nice and release their thing.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense, Alessio. I think let's certainly tackle these things in iterations. I think, keeping managed versioning to be specific to managed versioning will help us get more components over to that. But let's, I just put down some of your notes, but please drop down well, it will come out actually once Graham has got the pages epic a little bit more specced out. We should make sure it's clear on there, because what I'd like us to do is actually be able to use these epics to go to the teams and be like, hey, like, we have a thing, move pages to manage versioning. Here's what you will get. Here's what you won't get. Here's what you maybe will lose by adopting this process. Do you want us to go ahead and do this? And then that way, if we have work that they need to do, they're kind of expecting to pick that up. Awesome. Luckily, we have super simple release processes, so everything is fine. Cool. Is there any other stuff that we should go through this week? Nope. Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for the discussion. Yeah, well, I'll put some stuff around so Graham can comment, and if he's got any concerns or additional ideas, we can continue the discussion async, but I think we've got a good start, I think. So yeah, great work. Enjoy the rest of your days. Take care.
See you. Bye.